Today, we're checking out startups and investors that support them in the United Kingdom and a company called Raising Partners that helps them find their first investors. Welcome to another edition of The Angel Nest, where real angel investors and entrepreneurs partner to build great new companies. I'm David Hemingway. I'm a 5-time founder and now an active angel investor. And my mission here is to talk about how startups collaborate with investors to help them succeed. We don't make or recommend investments at the Angel Nest, and this program is for informational purposes only. Today, we're going across the pond to the UK, where we'll pay a virtual visit to a company called Raising Partners. They help founders find financing from private investors, and they've raised more than £60 million for over 175 companies. We'll speak to co-founder Helena Murphy and senior investment manager Alex Rowe about how they support startup founders. We'll also talk with one of their clients, Paddy Lowe. He's the founder of Zero Petroleum. His company is making fossil-free fuels, synthesized by the recycling of water and atmospheric carbon dioxide. Just amazing. They've recently secured a Guinness World Record in partnership with the Royal Air Force. It's for the first flight ever to be powered entirely by synthetic aviation fuel. Helena, Paddy, and Alex, thank you so much for joining us today on this international edition of the Angel Nest.
Thank you, David.
Helena, Raising Partners was born, as so many great ventures are, out of your own frustration and experience. You were a young entrepreneur. You're trying to raise money, deal with investors, and also run your business. You've said it was the service you wish you had to help when you started your first company. So tell us about that and what you do now to make such a difference for founders.
Yeah, thanks, David. So I started my first company that I raised money for when I was only 22, and I raised my first round of investment from angel investors really easily. I had an e-commerce business that I'd spun out of a kind of fledgling eBay store that I had as a teenager, and I had some initial early success. I raised angel investment so easily with the benefit of hindsight. I didn't think it was particularly easy at the time, but definitely with hindsight, it was by far and away the easiest round of investment I've ever done in my life. And it was only when I needed to raise my second round of investment, and this time I needed about £1 million, and I burnt through my £100,000 very quickly because I was holding stock. I had an e-commerce business, so there were a lot of costs associated with it. And I was like, why? I need £1 million. And I just casually went back to my investors as if this was going to be absolutely no problem for them. And of course, they were going to reinvest. And I didn't have anything really in place. I needed to conduct that kind of fundraise. I didn't have a financial model. I didn't have a pitch deck. I didn't have really any kind of firm understanding of any of the process. I didn't think about what my investors would be thinking about them thinking around, okay, what's your valuation going to be in this round? And how much will we get diluted, and how do you justify that valuation? And when's your next round of investment going to be? I had absolutely zero strategy. And because of that whole experience, lo and behold, spoiler, I did not raise my £1 million in the 8 weeks I'd given myself to do it. And I closed that business and I lost my hair from stress-related alopecia. And my journey with that business is entirely why we have Raising Partners today, because I really felt there was a gap in the market for someone to take you from, I've got this great business or potentially great business and great idea, and it needs some cash and some financing, to hold your hand through that entire process. Because a solicitor or a lawyer can help you with some parts of it. An accountant might be able to help you with some parts of it. Maybe your friends and family can introduce you to some people. But there really didn't feel as though there was anyone in the market that could sit down and be like, okay, right, these are the options for you in the market that you're in, and this is how the investment strategy might pan out. And you know what, let me help you write your deck, because you can't take what's in your head about your business and necessarily always translate it into the most investable opportunity.
Paddy Lowe, you're an engineer and a computer scientist. You've got an incredible list of accomplishments, including executive director of the Mercedes Formula One team. And now you started Zero Petroleum. And you probably thought that raising money from a few investors for such a great idea would be easy compared to flying planes without petroleum products. But that didn't really turn out to be the case, did it?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I've spent all of my career until 2019 as an employee mostly within Formula One teams. So I spent 32 years as an engineer and ultimately very senior engineer in big teams. And that was a fantastic career for an employed engineer. But in 2019, I've made my first venture into entrepreneurship And coming with, as you kindly pointed out, some great achievements to date, I thought actually raising money wouldn't be so tricky if we had a good idea, and particularly if it was around environment, energy transition. Synthetic fuels is right in the bullseye of what we need to do to work with the climate crisis. And it was almost like, well, here I am, I'm ready to work. Money should be the easiest bit. And what I've discovered, sort of rather painfully, is that that is actually the most difficult part of the business. So relative to the engineering itself, raising capital is very time consuming and full of obstacles. And I think we can come on to that, how Helena and Alex have really helped us through the early stages of that. We've actually turned the corner there, and the work and support from Alex and Helena has been invaluable in making that step. Getting that first traction, getting the first investors on the cap table.
Alex, what did it take to get Zero Petroleum from a concept to an investable business?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's really to prepare a set of assets with which to go to market, both to our investors and his network as well. He came to us really with a business plan and a pretty not light, but certainly not comprehensive. And within that, he outlined the problem statement. Obviously his background and his co-founder, who is the head of chemical engineering at Imperial College London, a very prominent leading institution here in the UK. Shouted loads about the quality and caliber of them as a team. So the first port of call really for us was to produce an investor deck, and tell the story. So we got very close with Paddy to, what does this fundraise get the company in terms of the next level, and then we would do it by stage, such that the investor could very clearly view exactly the journey they could go on, and also be part of. And really, it was just about finding that first, being patient enough and resolute enough to find that first commitment. And as soon as that one of our network kind of came with a 6-figure ticket after several calls and kind of due diligence, and we were really able to leverage that in terms of getting some of the others to commit. And of course, meanwhile, Paddy was using the deck to secure, a vital grant from the RAF, which was for £600,000, which massively reduced the cash need and de-risked the round as well to a certain extent. So, there's no question there was greater appetite once with that first domino had fallen. There was greater appetite to bring more investors in. 12 months later, Paddy did a second round, which is in excess of £2 million at a 10x increase in valuation, and a number of our investors followed on with even larger sums, which is great validation, and we're really pleased that we're continuing to play a role in supporting the company to go on to do big things.
Paddy, finding early stage investors is so much about finding people who are interested in solving the problem that you're working on. Was Raising Partners able to introduce you to the right investors?
Yeah, absolutely, and in the end, this was for our seed round. We got together 3 valuable investors for that, 2 of whom invested at our second round, so that the seed round closed in September 2021. Although we'd had the first offer from Raising Partners investor, I think going back to February or March that year. But we'd managed to we had got a government grant which kept us going a little bit longer, and we also got a contract from the Royal Air Force to do some valuable R&D, which led to the flight you mentioned at the beginning. So we've been very fortunate in general as a company and as a startup that whilst we've needed working capital, it's been supplemented, more than supplemented, by contracted R&D funding, which has allowed us to do most of our work without selling equity.
Is it fair to say that Raising Partners helped you get Zero Petroleum off the ground?
No, absolutely. We wouldn't have got that first sort of mark on the board without their help. And we didn't scout for a lot of companies. It came by a great recommendation from a crowdfund a company in the UK. But I see what they do, and I understand where they've raised money for others. That they're one of the better operations in the field, and it's been a great support to us, got us where we are, got us that critical first traction, and we hope the rest is history if we can take it, keep the graph going upwards. But yeah, absolutely, it's thanks to raising partners that we got off the ground.
So, if you would give us an update on where you are today.
It's a very exciting moment. We have just obtained a further contract from the Royal Air Force to develop the technology for synthetic fuels, let's call it properly, because the RAF said to us that they want to fly a plane. They didn't say they wanted fuel, they said they wanted to fly a plane, which is a terrific challenge, and they needed 15 litres of fuel to do that. So we had to actually make a plant within a period of 3 months that would make the fuel at that volume, and then make the fuel with it for about 6 weeks, and then fly the plane. So that was a demo phase. We did it quickly. We did it to get the job done, to prove the point. What this forward contract now is giving us is the challenge to do a proper and thorough job of the technical development for commercial readiness. We want to be very, very early players, if not first to market, in various fuels. So we can make diesel, we can make gasoline, we can make jet fuel. All those who are in the know in the industry would agree that jet fuel is here to stay for the long term. The difference is we just need to make it synthetically rather than dig it out of the ground.
Helena, it seems like one of the great things you provide your founders with is the perspective to think of their fundraising and their relationship with investors as more of a long-term process rather than a startup event.
I think people don't love this. I'm not a very popular person when someone comes to me and says, "Oh, I want to raise my first round of investment," and I immediately go back to them and say, "Great, let's talk about your second round of investment." Because whenever we look at fundraising, we look at the entire journey from the first check you get into your business all the way through to exit. Because sometimes as a founder, I think it's really easy to remove yourself from the concept that once you've got investment, you're always on a path to exit and a liquidation event for investors, and hopefully a really positive return for investors and for yourself. And if you don't think about investment in that way, it's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day of just having a bit of tunnel vision on that first round of investment and thinking, I'll think about that next round, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. And I just want to get this money in and get some traction. But it's really important to think strategically about how much money you're raising now and how much traction will you be able to get, and being really prepared you've got to get that money in and you've really got to put it to work to get to that inflection point for raising your next round of investment. And if you do that, it makes that next round of investment so much easier if you're really clear in round one on exactly how much you need to raise and what you're going to be able to deliver for that amount of money. And even better if you get to actually execute on that, because investors all know that things change. But I don't think anything compares with actually investing that time into thinking really strategically about what am I going to do with this money? How much traction am I going to be able to deliver? What are a couple of different scenarios if things don't go to plan, if your launch is delayed, if you get less customers because you don't actually know how well people are going to convert, and you've got a plan for the next round and you communicate that with investors in the first one. Because there's nothing worse, exactly how I experienced, than going back to your investors naively one day and hoping they're going to write another check, and them turning around and saying, well, no, because you've not done X, Y, and Z and we didn't sign up for that. I think, knowledge is power, and especially when it comes to raising money and I don't think you can ever be over prepared to raise money, but you can absolutely be underprepared. And there is nothing worse than the feeling of a founder of looking at something with hindsight and thinking, I should have done that extremely differently, because the consequences when you've raised money are and you don't raise a next round are catastrophic for everyone involved, because it ultimately means you have to close your business. So I think whenever I look at the first round of investment for a company, we always go to the second round of investment and the third and the fourth, all the way out to exit, and build a really strong strategy for fundraising over time, rather than just focusing on the first round of investment and what impact that's going to make. And that's a different way of looking at it, and a bit uncomfortable the first time you do it, but it's always worth it.
Helena Murphy and Alex Rowe from Raising Partners, you are obviously supporting some incredible innovation. And Paddy Lowe, congratulations again on Zero Petroleum. Thank you all for joining us today on the Angel Nest.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you, David.
You can reach Helena Murphy, Alex Rowe, or Paddy Lowe on our website, theangelnest.com. And we'd like to hear from you, especially if you know about a great company we should profile. Please email me at david@theangelnest.com. And now for the disclaimer that we don't make or recommend investments at the Angel Nest, and this program is for informational purposes only. We do not verify and cannot be held responsible for claims made by our guests or sponsors, some of whom may pay a fee to appear. I'm David Hemingway. We produce the Angel Nest in New York with help from David Newhoff. Thanks for listening. And here's hoping my fellow angels and the entrepreneurs they support find their next great venture. So long until next time.